Coming up on the program today. Finland becomes the latest country to confirm the new COVID-19 variant found in the UK, where another variant of the coronavirus exists. European Union governments in Brussels approved the new trade deal between the EU and the UK. Plus, a Saudi court sentences prominent women's rights activist Loujain Al-Hathoul in a case that has drawn international condemnation. A warm welcome to the program today. I'm Akaite Afia here in Lagos. The new variant of the COVID-19 found in the UK appears to be spreading around the world, with Finland being the latest country to confirm a case. Officials confirmed that at least one Finnish citizen who had returned from the UK tested positive at the weekend. The news comes as South Korea has also announced today that 3 of its citizens who had returned from London had the new strain.
The news about the new COVID variant in the UK being seen in South Korea comes as the country's officials vow to speed up efforts to launch a public coronavirus vaccination program. The new variant, thought to be more transmissible than others currently circulating, was found in 3 people who had entered the country from London on December 22nd, according to the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency. South Korea says it will extend a ban on direct flights from Britain for another week until January 7th and will require any passengers arriving from that country or from South Africa to undergo testing before departure. Over in Europe, mass COVID-19 vaccinations are well underway. France began the long-expected campaign on Sunday, with a 78-year-old lady being the first to receive a dose of vaccine across the country, a milestone move seen by locals as saving the country from trapping further into the pandemic abyss. The French government has also worked out a gradual rollout plan to access citizens for COVID-19 vaccinations on a voluntary basis and free of charge. Health workers today queued for a second day in Portugal at the vaccination centre in Lisbon's largest hospital, where the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine is being administered. Portugal hopes to vaccinate nearly 10% of the population during the first phase. With just over 10 million people, Portugal plans to buy 22 million doses of COVID-19 shots, and it has signed agreements to buy the vaccines with potential manufacturers CureVac, Pfizer-BioNTech, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, Sanofi and GSK. Beyond Europe, Indonesia is barring international visitors from entering the country for a 2-week period in a bid to stem the spread of a new coronavirus variant. The new regulation, effective January 1st, comes days after the country banned travellers from Britain and tightened rules for those arriving from Europe and Australia to limit the spread of the new strain. The new regulations applies to all foreign visitors, with the exception of high-level government officials. India has begun a 2-day COVID-19 vaccination dry run in 4 states. Krishna districts in the country's southern Andhra Pradesh state conducted the first dry run in the country, with senior districts and state officials witnessing the process. 3 other states of Punjab, Assam and Gujarat also participated in the dry run. The United Kingdom has strengthened its anti-epidemic measures around the country as 2 infectious coronavirus variants are detected. On December 14th, the UK found the first coronavirus variant, named VUI 2020-12/01, which is believed to transmit among people more easily. On December 23rd, Britain discovered another new coronavirus variant. Compared with the VUI 2020-12/01, the new variant spreads faster and is more highly mutated. And finally, U.S. President Donald Trump has signed the $900 billion COVID-19 relief bill and the $1.4 trillion government funding bill, ending his standoff with Congress and averting the risk of a federal government shutdown. Trump criticized the relief bill last week, stating that Congress needs to amend it and increase direct payments to Americans from $600 to $2,000 per person. But Under the pressure of Congress, he finally signed the bill.
2020.
U.S. law enforcement agents have named the suspect in the Christmas Day bombing in Nashville, Tennessee, as a 63-year-old Anthony Warner. They described Warner as a longtime Nashvillian who held several IT jobs throughout his life. Public records show he had extensive experience with electronics and alarm systems. Warner had lived at home in Antioch, southeast Nashville, that was searched on Saturday by FBI and U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives officials following the huge blast. Authorities have also released surveillance video that captured the blast that morning that left 3 people injured. The explosion occurred in the heart of America's country music capital, damaging businesses, including AT&T, Switching Center, disrupting mobile internet and TV services across central Tennessee and parts of 4 other states.
Today, as Director Roush mentioned, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, as well as the FBI laboratory in Quantico, Virginia, completed their DNA testing of a sample of human remains recovered at the scene. Those results were consistent with the suspect identified by U.S. Attorney Cochran. We're still following leads, but right now there is no indication that any other persons were involved.
Well, let's talk to Channels Television's Washington correspondent, Maria Bird. Maria, welcome to the program. Hope you had a great Christmas.
Thank you. Yes, I did. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So speaking of Christmas, I want to begin with the Nashville bombing. What more do we know about the suspects, and what leads do police have on a motive for the blast?
Well, at this time, we know that the individual, as you all mentioned, 63-year-old, we know that the motives are not 100% clear on this Christmas Day, exactly what his intentions were. As we know that 15 minutes prior to the explosions occurring, there were warnings put out to the individuals in that community. And so right now, there's a lot of investigation happening just to really see what was the actual intent of this occurring on Christmas Day. We know that the U.S. is in quite a turmoil right now, but I think it was something that really took the country by surprise, basing that we're in the pandemic as it stands right now. This is an elderly gentleman, and so we're just waiting to see exactly what the officers come out with on the coming days.
And you did mention that we're not quite clear on the motive, but I see that they're not treating this as a terrorist incident. Is there a reason why?
Well, obviously, this is a domestic issue here as well. The individual, as they noted, there was a big truck outside of the facility on that day. That was obviously not being clearly monitored. We know that there were not a lot of individuals in the community, in the area. We're in a pandemic right now. People are not really out. So if you were looking at a terrorist event, you'd be looking at a area that would have been highly populated with individuals. And this area was not highly populated. And there was a warning given 15 minutes before. So there are a lot of signs that would say that this was another intent was meant by this explosion as well, and really trying to figure out all of the actual details. I think that's what, and they're being very cautious at this time to be very clear as to how this occurred and why it occurred.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the COVID-19 relief bill that was finally signed by the U.S. president. So first of all, Maria, why the delay on the bill when it was clear that Congress was not going to shift ground on the stimulus for Americans? And secondly, now that the bill has been signed by the president, how soon can Americans receive their stimulus checks? And has the government really been saved from a shutdown?
Yes, I think the shutdown, to start there first, I think the shutdown is something that we can be rest assured that we're probably not going to see a shutdown. I mean, we're heading toward the inauguration. I mean, we're less than a few days away from the new year. Once we get to January, we'll be heading into the inauguration. So I think the Congress is looking to come together in a real way, just as they did with this bill. And you mentioned the delay first. I mean, the delay is really as it respects to the president as we noted, he felt that the bill should have been a bit different. But I think that he knew that if the bill was not signed, that would be something that would be a lasting memory within his administration. So he went forth and did that. The hope was that he would have had something prior to Christmas. And once he realized there was no way people were going to be able to get these checks before Christmas, for his administration, there was no rush to be able to get forward with an actual, signing of the bill. We were just days before the Christmas holiday, and so I think his initial intentions were not able to be met. And so, and once he realized there was not enough time to actually make a change to the bill, I'm sure that Republican congressional members reached out to him, really pushed him to move forward with this, and obviously his own administration within the White House.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Maria, for joining us, and please do stay safe out there.
Thank you for having me.
A lot is being fast-tracked since Britain and the EU agreed on the new trade deal. Just this morning, ambassadors of the European Union governments approved the provisional application from the 1st of January 2021. The deal, which ended 9 months of negotiations, will now be approved by all 27 EU governments in writing on Tuesday. The UK Cabinet Minister, Michael Gove, says there will be a bumpy moments for UK businesses and travelers as they get to grips with the new EU rules. So there would be practical and procedural changes when the transition period ends on December 31st. Meanwhile, UK MPs will be voting on the deal on Wednesday. Nature continues to wreak havoc as a magnitude 5.2 earthquake has been reported in central Croatia, with an epicenter measuring 50 kilometers southeast of the capital, Zagreb. It was followed by an aftershock registering 4.9 magnitude. The quake hit early this morning around 5:28 local time. There were no immediate reports of injuries or damage. Kristina Ikig-Banikeg, mayor of Sisak City, located about 40-minute drive from the epicenter, said emergency services had received more than 100 phone calls from residents after the quake. The last time Croatia experienced an earthquake anything close to what has happened was in March, when a magnitude 5.3 hit Zagreb, causing 1 death and injuring 27 people. Well, from quakes to snow blankets, at least that's what residents of Milan, Italy woke up to today all across the city. The crystalline silence of snow was felt in the city as snow hit overnight and in the early hours of the morning, leaving a white layer covering the financial hub and bringing a Christmassy feel to the iconic Duomo Square by the cathedral. Cold temperatures have brought snow to much of northwestern Italy, with up to 15 centimeters expected in Milan. The international community has condemned a court sentence of 5 years and 8 months on a prominent Saudi women's rights activist, Loujain al-Hathloul. The 31-year-old has been held since 2018 following her arrest, along with at least a dozen other women's rights activists. She was charged with seeking to change the Saudi political system and harming national security, according to local media. The court suspended 2 years and 10 months of her sentence, or time served, since Hathloul was arrested on May 15, 2018. Reports made by a local newspaper, the verdict poses an early challenge to Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's relationship with U.S. President-elect Joe Biden, who has described Riyadh as a pariah for its human rights record.
And civil society groups can and should play a vital role in the process of reform.
Still to come on The World Today. Matt Gold or 24K Whopper. Are you brave enough, rich enough to try the golden hamburger? We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us. Continuing with the U.S. and its relations, China is upset with President Donald Trump signing into law measures to further bolster support for Taiwan and Tibet, which had been included in a $2.3 trillion pandemic aid and spending package. China has watched with growing alarm as the United States has stepped up its backing for Chinese claimed Taiwan and its criticism of Beijing's rule in remote Tibet, further straining a relationship under intense pressure over trade, human rights, and other issues. The Taiwan Assurance Act of 2020 and Tibetan Policy and Support Act of 2020 both contain language objectionable to China, including U.S. support for Taiwan's meaningful participation in United Nations bodies and regular arms sales. On Tibet, which China has ruled with an iron fist since 1950, the act says sanctions should be put on Chinese officials who interfere in the selection of the exiled spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama's successor. The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Zhao Lijian, says China is opposed to both acts. Meanwhile, President of the U.S.-China Business Council, Craig Allen, says China's blueprint for its development in the next 15 years is impressive, as the country's decisions will be conducted to the world economic growth. In an interview a while ago, he praised the plans which focus on a green development and the promotion of China's domestic markets.
My comments are that I think that the focus on the environment and climate change is excellent. And I think that it's an important step forward for China to reduce carbon emissions. I also think it's excellent that under the 14th five-year plan, domestic consumption will replace investment and net exports as the engine of growth. Both of those decisions are very important and will help the global economy.
A Russian fishing boat with 19 people on board has sunk in the Arctic waters of the Barents Sea. 16 are missing. A nearby vessel was able to rescue 2 members of the Onega's crew and recover 1 body before the trawler went down near the Novaya Zemlya archipelago. A search for more survivors is underway, but local media say there is little hope. It is believed the vessel became weighed down by accumulated ice, causing it to capsize. Weather conditions in the area are poor, with reports of strong winds, storms, and extremely low temperatures. More than 1,000 migrants from Asia, the Middle East, and North Africa, whose camp was burnt down, were left to sleep in the cold as winter hit northwestern Bosnia on Sunday, amid a dispute among Bosnian politicians over where to house them. As some of the migrants queued for food in the snow, others wrapped in blankets and winter clothes slept on the floor in a few tents that survived the Wednesday, December 23rd fire, which destroyed the camp in Lipa. The camp, 25 kilometers away from Bihać town, opened last spring as a temporary shelter for the summer months. It was set to be shut for winter refurbishing on Wednesday, the same day as the fire.
And last 5 days was really bad for all the immigrants because there isn't any heater inside the tents. It's really dangerous to live here because it snowed yesterday, and the tent might fall down because you can see that all the snow has gathered on the top of the tent, so that might fall down. And there are more than 500 immigrants are living inside the tent. If they died, so who will be responsible? And you can see that a guy has panicked because of medicines. There isn't any doctor. So if he's gonna die, so who will take the responsibility? I mean, government of Bosnia will take the responsibility, or UN will take the responsibility.
Christmas this year was definitely different, and it is very likely the New Year's celebration will be as well. It will be devoid of all the fanfare that should accompany the new decade. Sydney, one of the world's first major cities to welcome each new year with a public countdown featuring a fireworks display over its well-known opera house, has banned large gatherings that night amid an outbreak of the coronavirus. A mid-December resurgence of COVID-19 in the city's northern beach suburbs has grown to 125 cases after 5 new infections were recorded on Monday. About 250,000 people there must stay in strict lockdown until January 9th. That has led to further restrictions of the already toned-down plans for the New Year's Eve. New South Wales Premier's Gladys Berejiklian banned most people from coming to Sydney's downtown that night and limited outdoor gatherings to 50 people. So this year, only residents with permits from hospitality venues will be allowed there on New Year's Eve.
Pleasingly, there were only 5 cases of community transmission in the 24 hours to 8 p.m, all of them on the northern beaches and all of them obviously associated in one way or another with the Avalon cluster. And Dr. Chant will provide some further detail around that. And whilst we're seeing the trends go the way we hope they do, there are still too many concerning aspects of those cases, and also of not really being able to identify what we call the intermediaries, those unlinked cases, for us to really ease restrictions in the way that we know the Northern Beaches community wanted us to do so. As you know, previously we'd allocated spots along the foreshore for frontline workers from across the state to be able to come and enjoy the fireworks. Unfortunately, we're going to have to cancel that. We think it's too much of a health risk having people from the regions and from Sydney and from broader regional areas congregate all in the CBD, and the advice to date has to all of us been try to avoid the CBD. And so on New Year's Eve we're going to say to those frontline workers we'd previously invited, we'll find another opportunity during the year to recognise what you've done. So on New Year's Eve we don't want any crowds on the foreshores around Sydney whatsoever.
Just how much are you willing to pay for a burger? Not just any burger, a golden one. Well, a restaurant in the Colombian capital, Bogota, is offering a juicy 24-karat gold-topped hamburger for a whopping 211,000 pesos or $60 US. The price of a regular Big Mac in Bogota is 17,725 Colombian pesos, which would be about $5.04 in the USA. Well, here's what makes this burger so special. In between the brioche bread are double beef patties, crispy caramelized bacon, crispy onion, double cheese, topped with 5 pieces of 24-karat edible gold leaves imported from the United States. Each sheet is about 0.0015 millimeters thick. The owner of the Colombian Toro McCoy restaurant says he was inspired by restaurants in Turkey where they served a similar burger. He hopes to bring new culinary experience to Colombian diners unable to travel due to the coronavirus pandemic. Well, gold and a burger, I'm definitely in. That's all we have for the program today. I'm Akaite Afia. Have a great evening and stay safe.